Well, hello and welcome. This is John Mason. I am the facilitator of Masters of the Journey. Today we're doing a recording on Zoom of a Zoom call of our regular third Sunday meeting. We don't often make the recordings, but today I think it will be of value to do that. This is the third Sunday in May. It's a very auspicious month because it's only got 3 letters in it. And my daughter-in-law is going to have a baby within the next few weeks. And so I'm going to be a grandpa 2 times over. But that's not what the conversation is about. Today we're going to be talking about enlightenment. If anybody saw the information I sent out in the email, we're guaranteeing money back, guarantee. We're guaranteeing enlightenment today. It's free, of course, so don't start asking for money. But we're going to have a conversation about that, and then we're going to have a part 2, and JJ Joshua is going to help lead our presentation on open-heartedness, which I may have it wrong, but it's my estimation that that is a good part of what the Enlightenment story can be about. So I'm going to begin today. Let's do a little bit of a meditation. For those of you who are not with us and you're joining us via the YouTube video, maybe just have everybody sit back comfortably, relax your jaw, relax your shoulders. You might want to close your eyes for just a few minutes. And I'm going to encourage you to take 3 deep breaths, pausing after you inhale, and then exhaling fully and completely. You might imagine that as you exhale, the warm breath that flows out and away helps you to let go of tension or distractions, even discomfort. And as you inhale, the soothing, cool breath helps you to become more present, maybe calm and peaceful, and helps you to begin to recharge yourself with that meditative calmness and comfort that will heal you and soothe you and allow you to fill with positive healing energies so that you can be of service and go out and do good in our world. And after the first 3 breaths, of course, just continue to breathe slowly and peacefully. Become as present as possible. And hopefully we'll be as open and available to the wisdom and the love and the care that we have for one another. And if you're watching this video after it's been recorded, it's a blessing to share this with you. We hope that it finds its way to be of service to you and then finds a way of being of service in our world. Thank you. Okay, so we're in the Pacific Northwest on May 16th, I believe. It's a really beautiful day. Because it's so lovely, a lot of people are choosing to be outdoors. We want to do this recording so they can enjoy it at another future time. So I'd like to do a little conversation before I'm going to do a screen share in a little bit. But I was wondering if anybody has thoughts about enlightenment. You know, how would you define enlightenment? Because there's probably a different perspective on that with every person that can conceive of what that's all about. And because it's unique to everyone, we're all going to find a unique path to have that come into our consciousness in this incarnation. So does anybody have something to share that they'd like to begin the conversation with? Okay. Yeah. Gene, I still can't hear you. No. If you can just
body language there. Yeah.
if you could just do it telepathically, that would be great.
That was cute.
I I was thinking about how to have this conversation today, and I was doing a meditation, and Paula and I have had this conversation. I'll bet you JJ will jump in on this as well. I think each and every one of us already has full enlightenment. Our soul and our spirit are perfect, they're powerful, they are so much greater than we allow ourselves to know or believe. Um, and we've heard our friend Don Lay say that many times. I think that when we're in our human bodies and in our human lives, there's so much drama and there's only 3 dimensions. It makes it very hard to really conceive of how big and powerful our soul and our spirits can be. And so it's the enlightenment is kind of on the other side of the veil. And our job is to see if we can part the veil, if only for a few moments and perhaps much longer, so that we can bring some of that wisdom, the divine wisdom and spirit, into our current lives so that we can be touched and changed by that. And I'm willing to have an argument with anybody about that because I I don't know that that's what everybody's belief is. It's enlightenment is like trying to define love or trying to describe an aroma or a fragrance, you know, or a feeling. We lose the full spectrum of what something is like that because words are inadequate. And again, I think we're trapped in our dimensional beliefs. But does anybody want to jump in and say anything? Yes.
Yeah, John, you talked about parting the veil because the power and the love of the soul, spirit, whatever you want to call it, is already there. And I agree. I would just use different words that enlightenment is the process of remembering the truth that's already inside of us, and that the untruth is everything out here in the form world, and it's very distracting. I read Akashic Records as part of my coaching practice, and what I've noticed is that people come into a lifetime with 2 or 3 main things on their soul's list to get rid of, to become free. So the soul's list is more about undoing than doing. But some people are so involved, so distracted by just the survival on Earth and all the, the bling of the planet that they never even get to their list. So to me, just really as a clinician looking at the Akashic Records, enlightenment is remembering who you really are. And you do that in any way you freaking can. There's so many ways to do it. And then the most efficient way to remember is forgiveness. Just forgiving myself and everyone ever for forgetting that we are divine, forgiving myself for forgetting that I was divine in the first place, and just choosing to wake up a little bit more. When the first words out of my mouth every day are, hey, this could be the day I totally wake up. This could be the day I totally forgive. Let's go. Because it could. I mean, one day that's going to happen, right? Yeah.
Awesome. That is wonderful perspective. And I'm going to put Paula on the spot in a minute because she and I have had a conversation because she's run into some new material about the possible organic, I say organic or physical, I'm not sure that that does it justice, but the perspective on what enlightenment and soul and spirit is. Paula, do you want to jump in and talk about the experience that you had?
Well, years ago, I heard a talk about, well, also a book about Jill Bolt Taylor, and she has studied the brain, and she's a scientist and a doctor, and it was called My Stroke of Insight, and she had a stroke where the left part of her brain had some bleeding in the brain. And since she was knowledgeable about the brain, she recognized that she was in the middle of having a stroke. And she described how living in the right side of her brain was like. And usually the left side of the brain is in charge of facts and figures and names and numbers. And it's very, very efficient. You know, it pretty much runs our life. The right side of the brain is more creative and expansive. It doesn't feel limited by anything. It's just connected to the whole, it feels like it's connected to the whole universe. It's just swimming in a bath of love. And so when I heard that the first time, I'd always thought of that kind of feeling as being a spiritual quality. And so I was kind of fascinated by the fact that it was an experience that was happening because of a condition in the brain, which is in the body. And I always kind of kept that in mind. But, you know, since then I've heard a lot about, you know, when you study the nature of consciousness, that consciousness, because of, for example, near-death experiences, you know, your body can die, but you still have awareness. So some people believe that consciousness is independent of the body. It lives outside of the body. And of course, when you're in that place outside the body, or you go to the higher realms and all that, you start feeling it like you're swimming in the bath of love and all of that stuff, and you're unlimited and you're connected to everything that is, which is a lot about what she was describing as being completely in her right brain. So it's kind of, you know, so I'm wondering again, you know, where does one start and the other one end? There are some experiences that I've had in the higher realms that I couldn't possibly have, that would go beyond the experience of just being in your right brain. So I was just kind of fascinated by that whole subject, kind of in a nutshell.
So that really offers a whole different perspective. I was getting, because we were arguing a little bit, I call it arguing, we were discussing it this week, and is consciousness high spiritual beingness, is that outside the body? Is it inside the body, part of the brain, or much broader than that? And I don't know that we're going to have an answer for that today on this particular call. I think we'll just leave everybody thinking about that and guessing about that. But what does enlightenment really look like? You know, are there people that we pass on the street that are fully enlightened and we may not recognize it? Are people striving to be divine beings in physical form and they drift around with us? I don't know that I can shoot for that. When I read the story about Buddha by Hesse called Siddhartha, he was an ascetic. He tried to follow philosophy. He was really disciplined. And finally, when he got to what was defined as a state of enlightenment in the physical manifestation of his incarnation, he had a very simple job. He was a ferryman that took people across a river. And being with him for that small amount of time, the travelers would benefit from either the energy that he had, or the words and the wisdom that he could share, or even just his skill at listening and being a witness, allowing them to develop their consciousness in a way just by being in that brief relationship with him at that time. Now, I am not Buddha. I don't claim to be that. And yet JJ said something that I really agree with. I think we all are really highly developed souls, spirits, beings, part of the universal divine. And maybe we just don't give ourselves credit for the fact that we are so fully enlightened. So does anybody else have an opinion or comments about that? Well, it looks like it's way too deep a topic. So no.
Oh, I just want to add something. We've all probably heard that the parable, that wonderful teaching parable about the two wolves.
Yeah.
Which one are you feeding? And so I really do feel that we all have the light wolf. We don't have to earn it. We don't have to learn it. We just have to turn toward it. So we have enlightenment and we have endarkenment. they're right there. And it is just a choice in my experience. And which of those selves am I choosing to feed in any given moment? And that the better I get at choosing to feed the light in me, then the habit of feeding the dark in me shrinks. And so that neural pathway that keeps going to feed the dark will get weaker and weaker and weaker. And that's a practice of just what am I feeding right now? Am I feeding the light or am I feeding the dark? And that's the daily kind of, chop wood, carry water of enlightenment, I think, is just choosing where your thoughts are.
Thank you. And that gives us a lot of food for thought, because some people find their way into enlightenment by happenstance, by a conscious accident or an unconscious accident, like a near-death experience or an aha moment. And all of a sudden there's something that opens for them. They see perhaps beyond the veil and their life is changed. And some people are consciously waking up in the morning and they're saying, I believe that every day, every step along the way is movement down my path. And every step is a step towards increased, enhanced consciousness. And then you add the light and the dark, like JJ did, because I'm very judgmental, so I didn't say that, right? No. Horrendous things can happen. Fearful, scary, sad, depressing, anxiety-producing things, and they can really jolt us into higher consciousness also. Mm-hmm. And maybe it's empathy, and maybe it's a critical lesson. Maybe it's a part of our life shutting down, which was such a distraction, it kept us from really appreciating the present moment and the soul of the person that's standing directly in front of us.
I like what JJ said, watching where your thoughts are, because that is actually a form of meditation. It's an awake form of meditation where you're watching what are the quality of my thoughts, and how am I reacting to them, and what is that whole string of thoughts that follows after that one, and where's it going? And if you can pull back and watch yourself doing that pulling back is basically what we do in meditation.
Mm-hmm. And the highest form of choice. A quick story about that. Years and years ago, I was in a master's in theology program, and it was master's in practical spirituality. And we had a spreadsheet of 22 practical spiritual habits we were going to do every day. It's a 2-year program. And we had a buddy, and we get to class in the first weekend. So it'd be an intensive weekend every month for 2 years. And we got handed one of those little clickers that they used to use for counting inventory, click, 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 click. And so one of the line items was to click every time you had a negative thought. Not like a really bad negative thought, but any negative thought, like, oh, the weather sucks, click, or bad hair day, click. And then we were to report to our buddy how many clicks we had in a day. And it was shocking. The first month that I did this, I was about ready to check myself into a rubber room. It's like, oh my God, I've got the worst brain on the planet. But then I get there, and the facilitator said, so how many of you lied to your buddy about how many clicks you had? Yeah, it was shocking. The clicker counted up to 1,000, and most of us had to clear our counters 3 to 5 times in a day. That's how many negative thoughts we had. Now, this was what was interesting. Simple awareness is often curative. So the next month, there was 56 of us, all different kinds of people from all over the place, but the numbers were almost universal, which implies social conditioning. How much we complained during the day, all of that. The next month, though, Paula, our numbers were 50% down almost across the board, except for this one guy that would never admit how many clicks he had. 50% down just by becoming aware. By the end of the 2 years, I actually had a few days where I had less than 10 clicks. By simply being aware of each thought and having to report it. We had accountability buddies. If you're just all by yourself, you can get off kind of mushy. So it was one of the most important educational experiences of my life in terms of watching the thoughts and being accountable. Like, is that making me stronger? Is that serving love? No. Click. So.
Wow.
Where do you get those clickers?
You get them online, but you can also get them right here in Bellingham at the old hardware store. The one on State Street. Hardware sales. Yeah. Okay. They're kind of clunky, the ones you get here. The ones we had were kind of fit right in the palm. But now I use my clicker when I'm counting breaths. So, yeah. But you got to have a buddy or you get too depressed. You got to, at first you really think you can just con right over the bend. And what we learned is that is a natural way that we are all taught. The neuroscientists talk about we have something like 7 million thoughts a day. I don't know how they count that, but it was absolutely shocking, the negative thoughts. I mean, I went almost 6 hours without a positive thought. I was just clicking. And it's like,
And the beauty of what you say, because it's very true, is awareness is half the battle. And whether it's negative thoughts or it's judgment or it's lack of gratitude or it's not being present, you could be aware and hit the clicker all day long on any of those habits. And today, in a minute, I'm going to do a screen share about what I think I need to do to take steps to move forward towards raising my consciousness. And this is what I'd like everybody to do. So the half the battle is awareness. And that's what we're here today to do. And if you're watching this video on your own, think about whether you do want to sign up for raising your consciousness, maybe moving towards whatever enlightenment is, and then make a list. Half the battle is to actually write your list to say, what is it that I could be doing differently, working on to raise my consciousness, to change the habits, to not let myself be walking around in my incarnation in a state of sleep, where I'm perhaps more dreading past experiences that were traumatic or fear of the anxiety that I don't know. How can I be really present and thinking about the steps that I could be taking to demonstrate higher consciousness. In other words, what could I be doing to fake it until I make it?
Yeah.
Let me do a little screen share, and this is from a blog that I wrote. It was on March 26th. It came out. If you go to the Stress Education Center's website, there's a blog link, and you have to cycle back because there's a new one every week. So several weeks ago, I published Next Steps Towards Enlightenment. And this is not what everybody has to do. This is just my part of my story. And this is a list that I came up with of things that I would consider worth being, first off, aware of, and then secondly, seeing if I can engage them till they become a habit in my life. And if they trigger anything for you, you can either go back and look at this list or make your own. I really encourage, each one of us is unique and we need our own plan. So I ask you to consider the first one for me. You can read the list, but considering that there's some people that can't read the screen, I'm gonna work my way through them rather quickly. Consider, be present. Lessen your emotional reaction to live in the past or the future. In other words, sometimes we get stuck and we want to see if we can actually be fully conscious and not just caught up in past memories or in future anxieties. Okay, this is a tough one for me. Find equanimity first, and that's before my knee-jerk reaction with frustration and anger. Oh, gee, I said that's not easy because I have a habitual response to just jump in frustration. Live in allowance. You know, and some of these, the people on this call have taught me and shared with me. So I'm gonna sound like they're my mentors and that I've actually listened as a student. But to live in allowance, to accept more, to push less, not trying to figure everything out, just allowing it to happen. And people who know me know that I've struggled with becoming a grandparent, and it's one of my lessons in just allowing. I just have to sit there and be the person that watches what goes on and support the family rather than trying to control things. This is one that some people on the call really do well. Beam unconditional love. When I say love and I say unconditional, it's different than any kind of human love.
Yeah.
There's always conditions. Even if you have a pet, the pet loves you with conditions. So unconditional love is a divine thing of giving without any expectation of return.
You know what Bob Trask said? I just think it's funny. Bob Trask said, now, if you have a dog is a great example of unconditional love. Now, if you have a cat, on the other hand,
Yeah.
anyways, I just thought I'd throw that joke out.
Oh, no. I see, I've been on the call with Connie a lot, and she tells me that you get unconditional love from your pets. And I think that it's conditional. I think if you stop feeding them, they would disappear somehow. I don't know. Okay, that's a joke. I'm not trying to be cold or cruel. But I am that way, because look at the next one. It's, have less judgment, more acceptance, and compassion. This is what I think I was hearing. I wanted to hear from what JJ was saying. More fully remember my spiritual power beyond my human limitations. Not get caught in that human drama and the role that I'm culturally asked to play. Listen with love and empathy. And pause and do not interrupt. Be a great witness to somebody else's story. You're giving them, you're serving them by allowing them to tell their story, and they're giving you a great gift. So if you interrupt them with your story, it sometimes gets in the way a little bit, and it becomes a real important lesson. But I'm just saying, try being the witness. Embrace the miracle of life, appreciation for each and everything that goes on. Bask in joy, even when you're in the hard places, the dark places. Look for what the lesson is. You know, Paul and I were talking about Viktor Frankl's work as a survivor of the concentration camps. And one of the things that he says is, even in a horrendous situation, there may be an important lesson to learn. And we want to look at that because that's going to help us survive. That's going to help us take something away that's positive and maybe joyful, even when we're in a dark time. Express gratitude. I've heard JJ, she'll talk about this with the open-heartedness, I know. Expressing gratitude, being thankful, even for the most mundane things, like getting up in the morning, or all of the miracles we see in the interactions that we have with each other. And then that leads to celebrate each interaction with other souls. Every soul is perfect, even if they're wearing disguises and they're in a role or drama that makes them look like villains. That, I think that's pretty entertaining if you can look at everybody as a part of a drama of a play. Unconditionally, give unconditionally and support the fellow people that you meet. Live in wonderment and amazement. Channel love and healing. Know that life is a state of impermanence, and life is temporary, and so are all the pains and the challenges that we have. And the last thing for me to remember, and I'm doing a better job of that, is that we're all interconnected. And you know, we want to, if you want the link to that blog, it's right there. And I'm gonna get rid of the screen share so that we can kind of have our conversation again. Any comments come to mind about that list? What did I not put on that list that somebody would be willing to add to it?
I think just learning what nature gives to us. I think tuning into nature, that for me was what really took me to the place of love within my heart. So I think nature is, and there's so much of it up there that you can enjoy, you know, in the Bellingham area and all of it.
So when you say appreciate every miracle that you see out in nature,
just be, you know, when I lived up there and I used to take walks, I immersed myself in it. I could feel it. I could, you know, I loved the beauty. You know, there's, you know, nature gives so much just by letting yourself be immersed in it and enjoy the quiet and the peacefulness. My favorite time of night here is once the sun has gone down, but the twilight is there, because for me, it feels like that's when nature breathes. That's how it feels to me, when nature is really breathing and you can just feel it. So for me, that's major.
Another thing I would add, John, to your list, which I think is brilliant, is the practice of forgiveness. Forgiving faster, forgiving ourselves, forgiving the world, forgiving COVID, just forgiving. Carte blanche forgiveness all day long. I once heard a master say, if you forgive 100 times a day, that's a really good day for a human.
nice. And I know in the second part of what we're talking about, that plays a role, I know, on open-heartedness.
Mm-hmm.
something to look forward to. Thank you. And we'll repeat that in case people separate these videos out. Anything else come to mind? Paula,
You know, I was thinking it kind of goes with forgiveness, is not taking personal offense about everything. You know, it's like something happens, it's not all about me. I mean, it seems like my whole life is about me, but it really it is, you know, I don't have to take everything so personally.
Yeah, that's in the four agreements, right? From Don Miguel Ruiz. Don't take anything personally. That could save us so much pain when we learn to do that.
good, good. And I'm not going to put Paula on the spot because she wrote the book about the higher realms. And obviously, she knows how to get there. Um, I've tried, and I don't do it as well as she does. Right, Paula?
Well, it's just because somebody took me there, otherwise I wouldn't either.
Oh, nice, nice. Does anybody have any of those things that they would add to their list of things that they would like to be doing on a regular basis, daily basis, perhaps, that might improve their attitudes and their consciousness? Does anybody want to sign up for any of that?
Well, if we all did that whole list, you know, rocket fuel, it's just, that's a beautiful way to live.
Thank you. Thank you. So the assignment is for everybody who's participated on this call and everybody who sees this video, just do all 16 of those things for the next 120 years and you'll live a long time.
And stop and smell the roses, right, Connie?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
I would just like to share something when years ago when I found myself at a really low point. The thing that really helped me come out of it, and I do believe that enlightenment is all about finding the love within ourselves and being able to feel it. And so for me, I started when I would walk out the door, finding what I could love. Was it, you know, the color of the sky? Was it flowers? Was it an animal? Was it a bee? Just finding things that I could love. And the more I did that, the more that it helped me get to that place of love. So that was really helpful for me because it really took me out of a deep pit.
Thank you. That is such a useful tool for people to attempt or just remember to do. Find a miracle that exists. We're surrounded by miracles. Our earth is a miracle. Every human being that you pass cannot be fully explained or understood, not by science or anything. And if we can appreciate and love them, maybe we can find a way of raising our own consciousness from the inside out, and then being the beacon of love and light that will light the way for other people to move their consciousness to even better places. Thank you. Anybody else have anything that they would add to the list or would put on their list? Okay. So give that some thought. If you're watching this on a video and you'd like to comment something that I've excluded either consciously or unconsciously, please add it to the comments and maybe we can just continue that list growing so that it's practical for everybody to participate in. Any other thoughts about this at this time? Because I'm going to wind down and stop this part of the recording, and then we'll start it up again, and we'll build a foundation and talk about open-heartedness. that's something to look forward to in part 2. So thank you, everyone.